What happened to Ryan? Hey, why do I hear myself twice?
Hey, I'm out of focus.
Bam. You're just an illusion mage, that's all.
Yeah. Magic, motherfucker.
Hell yeah. My wizard hat is sadly MIA. It's in a big box of wedding stuff because we got these things from a bachelor party.
Hell yeah. Shadow Wizard
yeah.
Money Gang.
Yeah. Do you guys hear me twice?
No.
I hear you once.
Oh, there we go. I figured it out.
And
it was
that's
also
enough.
pulling my webcam audio for some reason. That was weird. Anyways, how are y'all doing? How you doing, Ryan? You good? Vibing?
I'm doing alright.
Hell yeah.
I think I might be fighting a sickness.
It's not just
I'm
allergies?
sleeping a lot. No. Someone in my house is sick, and I think they may have potentially infected me. But I'm fighting it off. I'm drinking lots of
Praise
alcohol.
Nurgle, baby.
I hope you're not that sick, because we got to play Age of Sigmar on Saturday.
Like, I'll just praise Nurgle and be there.
There you go. How you doing, Matt?
Doing pretty good. I'm hyped for this Age of Sigmar stuff, man. This has me like retabulating and numerologying all my little bits. I'm pretty excited to report on my model count for the Maggotkin of Nurgle. It's higher than I thought. I actually don't have to buy anything, which is weird to say.
I have about
I need
1,000 points of Gruul Boys just sitting right here behind me.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Gonna get those done up
I
soon.
bet I have about 1,000 points of Slaves of Darkness. I might have more. I'll have to tabulate it.
Yeah,
would be cool.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. Speaking of Age of Sigmar, over the last couple days, they released a whole bunch of stuff about how the new rules are gonna work. Did you guys read those articles? They were pretty cool.
I did my homework.
You did your homework?
Me too.
So a lot of what we talk about is going to be coming from the lens of people that have played a lot of 40k, and not a whole ton of Age of Sigmar. But Age of Sigmar right now seems like it's kind of going through the same kind of thing that 10th edition 40k did, where they're indexing, which is the biggest news, and also kind of restructuring how the core rules work in a pretty fundamental way, it seems like. So, yeah, overall, pretty excited. I took some notes. So the first kind of point is, obviously, that they are indexing the whole thing. Nobody's going to have, what are they called, battle tomes? Nobody's going to have battle tomes anymore.
Tomes, yeah.
They're all going to be releasing indexes. They're going to be free rules that you can get online. Or they're going to buy, or you're going to be able to buy the like physical index cards or a book. I don't know exactly how they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
My suggestion to people would be, don't buy those, because they were wrong, misprinted, invalidated very quickly in 40k.
Yeah.
I think so. If anyone that also tuned into the stream that we did last Monday, where I had Chaos Demons on the table, I was using the index cards, and on the index card for Be'lakor, he is neither a psyker nor is he a flyer. Turns out he is both of those things, and it's core. It is core and fundamental to him being what he is in the lore. So yeah, those cards. Man, I don't know.
Yeah, and
Make your own
and I
card.
think like the Great Unclean one didn't have torrent on his puke or whatever.
Yeah, I still had to roll for a 2-up.
Well, it's like you did it the first time. I was like, huh, that doesn't seem right. I assumed that was torrent, and then the next time I was like, hold on, wait, it is torrent.
Yeah.
So yeah, highly recommend not buying the physical cards that they're gonna release and just using the app or like some digital version. Yeah, Alpha again, chat. I just use the app.
So,
Yeah, definitely just use the app.
That's the way to do it.
yeah.
That assumes we're gonna have an
Need
app.
to give the
Fingers
app
crossed.
a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, since AOS is going into kind of an indexing state, the same way that 40k is, how do you guys feel that 40k is handling indexes?
I think it's
wanna go
nice
first,
that at the
second?
start of 10th edition, everybody had rules that they could pull from. I mean, they kind of had to do it. anytime you have a huge rules update like that, you have to release an index, as opposed to like I think the jump from 8th to 9th, you could just use the old codexes because the rules were pretty much the same. I haven't experienced anything where I lost the ability to access information on an army because their codex came out and I didn't have the codex at the time. I think you guys maybe have had that happen, like a little dead period where you didn't have access through the app.
Kinda, yeah.
But yeah, none of my factions have gotten a codex yet. So
yeah, the biggest one is like, is another thing that happened on Monday. As we were talking about Tyranids, and I went to go look up a Tyranids rule. It's like, oh, I can't because I don't have the fucking codex. So it sucks. I wish they would change the model. But I don't know that that's necessarily a problem with indexing as it is just a problem with GW's fundamental business model.
Yeah, like I think I know like when I started out in 3rd edition, the 3rd edition rulebook had the index in it for all the armies. Mm-hmm. Every army's index is in the 3rd edition book. And like having access to that, like, you know, you're sitting there, you're like playing games with your army, and you like flip through and you're looking at another army, you're like, that looks pretty nice. You know, having access to that stuff makes you kind of like incentivizes you or like tempts you to buy other armies, you know. Whereas if they cut it off and like all of a sudden you have to buy codex to see anything about them, or even like run a proxy game with them, I feel like they're losing an opportunity there, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
I can see that for sure. I think the way that they want to, like, their model for onboarding people, you probably used to look like that. And also, I think they're like 3 CEOs back when 3rd edition 40K was a thing. So the models have changed entirely. I think they're the way it looks probably like in the cold calculated accountants and like the finance room is you have 2 onboarding methods. One is going to be combat patrol, and one is going to be kill teams for 40K, right? And we see that parallel with Age of Sigmar, and I think they're going to further refine that, where Warcry is probably going to see... Well, Warcry is currently, like, popping off. I mean, we saw with the Adepticon stuff, like, one of the bigger reveals was some more Warcry shit. I mean, I can't remember what it was exactly. I think it was the
Bone Reapers in Sylvaneth. Yeah.
There we go, yeah. One of them was like throwing balls of bees and stuff. It was pretty cool. Anyway, it's you know, kill team and combat patrol, and we know they're going to be pushing combat patrol pretty hard, or spearhead for Age of Sigmar pretty hard because of how the modularity article was phrased. So I can see them pulling back the rules and doing the book thing. It just sucks when you've got kind of like you have things given to you all at once and then slowly taken away, and that never feels good, even for armies that I'm never going to play, right? So, you know, it is what it is. I'm sure they'll change it again in an edition or 3 from now, but who knows what it's going to look like, right?
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
I imagine the next like edition or 2 of both 40K and Age of Sigmar are going to be built off of these 2 that they so like we won't have indexes in 11th edition 40K, I would imagine. It'll just be built off the codexes. That'd be my prediction.
Dude, but if they... All right, so here's another thing that I wanted to bring up. Like, I'm cool with indexing, but if they're going to do it every single edition, they're going to burn a ton of like community joy, I guess. Like,
they're going to lose a lot of goodwill.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word I'm looking for.
If they do index?
Yeah. I can't do an index personally. I can't stand it when they index even more than what they did from like 8th to 10th. Like, because when you think about it, 8th was a massive rewrite, and then we immediately have another massive rewrite. So
every other edition even seems like a lot. Yeah,
they're pushing.
So you don't like the indexes?
The indexes are a very powerful reset. I don't like the idea of a company constantly hitting that and turning players kind of on their heels and spinning them every which way. I think what they did with 8th edition was necessary for what the game from what I peaked at, because I wasn't a player then except for like a very small flash in the pan with 6th. when I peeked into what 7th edition was, it was fucking like clowns running the madhouse, dude. It was fucking insane. And so they had to call, like, dude, it was bonkers. It was like you would have an Inquisitor surrounded by 30 Fenrisian wolves, and you would be fighting a Death Star of 60 Screamers of Tzeentch, and everything had 3-up invulns re-rolling ones. It was like psycho shit. It wasn't good. And so you have to nuke it pretty hard there. But if you're doing that every other edition, that is a sign that I don't know you guys. I don't know if you guys know where you're going with this game, right? So it kills my trust in it when they nuke too many times, and I'm worried that they're in 40K. They're going to nuke again for 11th edition, but we're talking about Age of Sigmar. And it seems like some of the community is kind of annoyed with them nuking now because the game, from what I can tell, is in a very stable state. Just me as a third person perspective. See, like, going in there.
It's interesting to me because I'm more with Sean. Like, Sean posted, I love indexing. I think they need more time between editions. Like, for me, I think it's really cool when a new edition comes out that every army gets an index. It all is brought up to speed with any changes in the rules. There's not like you can tell they've like put thought into every army. I would, if they do that model, I would want more time between editions. But yeah, like, to me, indexing every edition wouldn't be a turnoff. I wouldn't dislike that, honestly.
Yeah, I'm kind of like in both camps almost, in that I want more time between editions. Like, I think editions should last 5 or more years. And also I don't think they should index every time. Because AOS 3rd edition came out in June of 2021. So it'll be about 3 years in addition, it seems like. I don't know when 2nd edition came out compared to 3rd, but that just doesn't seem like enough time to let an edition breathe. And we saw that with 9th edition 40K, right? They were releasing books right up until the very end, and World Leaders and Guard players had like 4 months to play with their books before they were immediately invalidated.
Yeah. That is
and I guess,
rough. But
I guess in my head, I'm trying to break the chain of thinking about it in editions and more in years of like a time to play. If they're indexing once every 5 years, then fine. But if you're doing it any sooner than that, like that makes me concerned for like what the hell you're playing, because every time that happens, it invalidates every single book. Every time you buy a codex, that's wasted money. I can't tell you like how much of a shame it is when I look over at the shelf over there and I see like at this, because I mean I was playing at 8th and I was buying up all the books that I could. I like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars of like 90% useless rules now. Like, we're never playing 8th again. So I mean, like, I've
you
got
say
like
that,
40
but
pages of cool stuff.
hundreds of dollars is 4 books.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be honest with you. This stack of useless books, dead books, is pushing like $1,000. And I mean, like, it'll be fun to go through in 20 years because, like, you know, the Angels of Death book is fun to go through. But man, I don't know. Like, when am I going to be cracking open the 8th edition Raven Guard supplement to read the same story again? Because it's like 40 pages.
Yeah.
It feels bad to have that many dead rules on the shelf that if you want to play an RTT and you need to have a rule checked or your opponent's checking you right then, you need to pull out a book and point to it. You can't be like, hold on, let me load up Wahapedia, blah, 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 all that stuff. Like, you need either a TO that knows a shit and or point to it. And sometimes the TO is working on another table because
an app. You know, if
yeah,
app's functional,
I mean, yeah,
that would be the ideal way to do it, because then that gets that can be updated.
I mean, that's like what GW said with 40K 10th edition, right? Is that the app supersedes any printed material. So when you're at a tournament, if you want to pull up a rule, prove that this rule is the way it is, you look at the app. You don't pull up any of the printed books because it's all invalidated very quickly. So, yeah, I mean, that kind of feels bad. I don't know that I want to, the indexing is probably the biggest thing to come out of 4th edition AOS. Maybe we do a whole episode one of these weeks just talking about pros and cons of indexing as a whole.
Yeah, I guess the thing that, like, you're talking about how the indexing invalidates everything. Like, if and like the money wasted on codexes, if every edition had an index and a codex, you'd be spending the same amount of money on codexes as if every edition didn't have an index. So I don't get that's the part of that I don't understand. But I don't want to get too lost in the weeds on that.
No, so it's not just like dead books. It's about how long you had to use a book, right? So one of the extreme examples is Guard, right? So Guard, and World Eaters for 9th edition, they had like less than 6 months to.
I'm pretty sure Guard had 4 months, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
like value out of investment.
Yeah,
right, exactly. And so it's not like they're coming up with whole new content in these books. Like, if you look at the 7th edition Demons Codex and compare it to the 8th edition Demons Codex, like, half the stories are the same. So they're not writing new lore with these either. And so at a certain point, this indexing puts a pretty harsh and bleak view on wanting to buy the books. And I like the books. So I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Okay, they had about 6 months. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think they should be printing and releasing new lore in the books, new artwork. Like, to me, that's always been the selling point of the codexes, and I feel like for a while it was like that. They would release new artwork, they would get new stuff to show people about a faction, but they've been like reusing some artwork recently. Like, I know the next Chaos Marine Codex is the exact same cover artwork as the last one, assuming the roadmap is accurate.
Well, also, like, it's a big thing that everybody's talking about when the Dark Angels Codex came out. All of the lore and, like, basically the entire book is just copy pasted from 9th edition, including like all the typos that existed in the 9th edition Codex.
Oh, really?
So it is just a straight copy paste.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
I feel bad because I feel like I've scrolled us down a 40K hole, and the banner on our broadcast literally.
We are going a little bit down a 40K hole. But anyway, let's talk about why they're indexing. Now that we've talked about indexing for 15 minutes, let's talk about why they're indexing. Because they're changing a lot of the fundamental rules of Age of Sigmar, including stuff like changing basic stat lines. And again, this is another thing that is kind of reminding me of 10th edition 40K. So the thing that they said in the article was that they're basically looking at stat lines and how they compare to each other. So like Grots versus humans and Saurus warriors versus like an orc. How do those things actually compare to each other? And changing the stat lines. And I think that that's going to be kind of similar to how they kind of stretched out the stats in 40K. I imagine they're going to be doing something similar. So your big monsters and dragons and shit will probably have much higher health pools or some kind of stats. Because toughness doesn't exist in Age of Sigmar, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Toughness does it.
Right.
Yeah. So they're going to do some kind of stat stretching, I have to imagine. I don't know exactly what that looks like in Age of Sigmar, because I just don't have enough experience with the system. But that's, again, like another thing to me that's very reminiscent of going from 9th to 10th edition 40K.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting. I honestly would like it if they brought toughness back. And I know that's kind of the Age of Sigmar people don't want to hear that. And at a certain point, you got to be careful because you don't want Age of Sigmar to just become like
40K but different.
40K Fairyland, fairy tale. So like you can't overlap them too hard, and you don't want to lose that secret sauce. But I don't know. I never got my head around I have my own to wound that I'm
to
also
hit to
looking
wound.
for. Like,
yeah.
If it's that simple, just combine it into the dice roll, into the first hit roll.
I think more than making it too much like 40K, they don't want to make it too much like Old World, which I think is probably why they're changing it from wounds to health. Is because now Old World exists.
Yeah.
And like the terminology wounds is an Old World terminology.
But
and so they're using health now.
I hate that. I hate that they're changing wounds to health, because across every GW game that I've ever played, it's always wounds.
Yeah, it's iconic, but
So it's such a
It's-
weird thing for them to change.
I remember starting with Kill Team, like the first version of Kill Team, and I promise I don't always talk about Kill Team every time I'm on a podcast. But
you're just trying to find a way to say that you were the best Space Marine player.
I say this with zero.
You know what
ego.
you're doing. Yeah, with zero ego. We know what you're doing. It's fine.
Inside the Kill Team book, there were 4 separate, completely distinct rules or stat lines or like unique characteristics of the game or model that were all referred to as wound. Right? You had the wound roll, you had wounds, you had a there was another one like the wound.
So like a wounded condition.
Yeah, there was a wounded condition,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
it was like, dude. It was mind-numbing because you could be like, well, I wound on your wound, but you're wounded. So it's like, what?
You ever wounded while you
So-
wounded, dog?
Yeah, dude. Real wounding hours out here.
This conversation is getting me wound up.
Yeah, boy.
That was a
So,
bad joke. I'm sorry, everyone.
I mean, I kind of like health, personally. Real wounding at my man. I kind of like health because, but that's just me.
I mean,
I guess it's
I'm
like a
fine
weird.
with it because I'm fine with it because Age of Sigmar to me is not like a traditional Warhammer game.
Yeah,
You got Warhammer Old World, you got Warhammer 40k, and then you have Age of Sigmar.
yeah.
You know,
I guess I'm like obviously exaggerating, but it just feels like such a weird thing to be like, we're changing wounds to health, and then like put that in the article about all of your big rule changes that you're making to the game. Just like slip it in there. Yeah, we're changing wounds to health, by the way. Okay. Cool. Just seems like a weird change, and like a weird change for them to specifically call out in that fashion,
yeah.
I guess.
I guarantee you it's because of Old World. They're trying to make it
As distinct as possible.
as distinct as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Seems like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, they're changing stat lines, they're changing the whole war scroll design, it sounds like. Renaming some stats like wounds to health. 3 inches? 3 inches is going to become the magic number for AOS.
Yeah, that
Story
is
of my
a
life,
lot.
brother. Sorry. Praise Nurgle is what I meant to
Look,
say.
I knew it was gonna happen. I knew it was gonna happen.
I think everybody took a wound.
I
on that one.
started saying it, and I knew it. But anyway, so we're changing melee range. It seems like is just standardized to 3 inches. And objectives are moving to 40k style, 40 millimeter markers, and 3 inches away from that becomes your objective.
Yeah.
All right. Alpha Omega brings up a really good point about health being something that you would see in D&D. I wouldn't be surprised if
you
they're
see
trying to
hit
like capitalize on some of that.
You see hit points in D&D.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've only played 5 sessions of D&D at this point, so
I've been playing D&D for years.
I got my frog dice
Amen.
over here. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
I mean, honestly, when things are kicking off at like D&D tables, half the time you're calling it health anyway, or at least I am. It's like, all right, how much health are you at? Like that kind of thing. It's just
Fucking casual.
Excuse me, how many hit points do you have
I
before
don't have my
you
glasses
can use
on.
a
Shit,
second
hold on.
wind? No,
actually...
here we go.
Actually. Where's your glasses, Matt? Nerd.
I know, man. I don't have them. Yeah, sorry. I'm just gigabrained over here.
But yeah,
So
that honestly, I don't really care about it being health.
Yeah, that is what it is. That was just an interesting little tidbit there.
Yeah.
But so
I'll probably still call
3
it
inches,
when I play.
standardized 3-inch melee range seems weird to me. It
So
like
I'm
made
guessing-
sense that engagement range had different, I guess, ranges depending on what weapons you were using. So like I'm painting the two different kinds of gut rippas for Cruel Boys. One of them spears, one of them's like swords and axes. And the spears have a longer range than the guys with the axes, which makes sense. The axes are 1-inch range, the spears are 2-inch range. But it is weird that they would change that to me.
Did AOS? I've played a bit of AOS, but I don't remember. In AOS, was there anything like ranking up? Like if you're base to base and somebody who was base to base, you could attack, or is it purely based on the range from your base?
There was something, I'm trying to remember. There was something going on with pile-ins that was a big deal. I think what the 3-inch like melee bubble is trying to do is to try and level out the playing field with melee armies and ranged armies, because now you have a much bigger threat bubble, right? So your threat bubble versus like a skew range army is going to be a lot more manageable than if you have to worry about 1-inch, right? Because if you look at like the area of the table covered from like a blob of 10 32 millimeter bases with a 1-inch threat melee bubble, they don't have as big of a footprint by a sizable amount as someone who has a 3-inch melee bubble, right? So the ability for melee armies to catch up with ranged armies, I think that's kind of where they're approaching it with that. And also it kind of simplifies combat. You don't have to bust out the micrometer and be like, actually my spear is reaching toward, like,
yeah. I'm sure there'll be something
that's my guess,
to differentiate spears from axes.
Sure, yeah, there definitely will be.
Yeah.
The damage and rending, I think, was like also slightly different.
Yeah, and I'm like, they could do something where like if you're charging someone with a spear, it's like the medieval equivalent of a flamethrower, right? Like you're gonna have a very interesting time if you're charging,
or you just get lance. You just get lance.
Exactly. Yeah, or fights first or something like that.
Which that kind of brings us to our next point, in that they're introducing universal special rules. We've seen that going on in 10th edition 40k. Overall, I'm happy with it. I think in 10th edition, I think that there's a few little missteps in it. Like I think there's things that keep popping up that should have been universal special rules that aren't for some reason. But overall, I think it's fine.
I think it leads to like smoothing out of character in the armies. Like you lose a little bit of the personality of a faction, but you gain a lot in terms of familiarity with how the game functions when you're fighting a unfamiliar faction, because they can just be like, "Oh, it's this rule," and you're like, "Oh yeah, I know that."
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I understand why they would do that.
Yeah. I don't think
I understand it definitely for Age of Sigmar, because my perception of Age of Sigmar is it's always been a more casual game than like 40k, and definitely more casual than Old World. So doing that in Age of Sigmar to me just makes sense. I'm kind of on the fence about whether I like it or dislike it in 40k. Like I wish my Terminators could take like combi meltas, plasma, and flamers, as opposed to just combi weapons.
Yeah, well, I mean that's not really USR, right? That's just they have flattened profiles for some reason.
Yeah, but I mean, like I think they did that. Like they were like, okay, we're introducing devastating wounds. We could, it was a way for them to utilize the
same philosophy
rules.
took
maybe.
There.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's more of like, it's not necessarily a thing that's guaranteed with introducing universal special rules. That's just how they chose to implement them, I guess. And so maybe that doesn't apply to Age of Sigmar. I hope it doesn't, because I do feel like you're right to an extent that it's kind of gotten rid of a lot of the flavor and character that some of the armies used to have. But I think they also brought some of that back with the codexes. I feel like
that could
overall the codexes have been doing a good job. There's a couple that have been fucking stinkers, but overall I think they're doing a pretty good job as far as that goes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they're going to do a better job than how it worked in 10th. I think if they're paying attention, which I think the fact that they're kind of going towards a unified, we've done this with 40K, now we're doing it with Age of Sigmar, makes me think that they are learning from previous things, and they're going to try and fix that. So you're not going to have the crazy disparities that need to be addressed like out the gate with like the Eldar problem in opening of 10th, that kind of thing. So it's certainly they make it more challenging for them. I'm trying to remember how many Age of Sigmar factions there are. I want to say there's 16. Let me pull up PD real quick.
Sounds right.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it's so it's one of those things where each army obviously has its own like lore distinction and like visual and aesthetic distinction, but you kind of don't want all these armies playing super samey. So USRs and stuff like that kind of limit your ability to be creative outside of like army rules or detachment rules or whatever the equivalent of that is going to be, especially when you start pulling modules out. And an army might like the Tzeentch army probably is going to feel a lot different if you don't play with magic, right? Like
Yeah.
what are those boys
I don't know if you're ready to dive into modules.
Yeah.
That's
So-
like one of the things I'm really curious about.
So that we'll speed through the rest of the things that they talked about, and then we'll get into modules, because that was kind of the big thing that they released an article about today, was the whole modular system. So another thing that I think is like a decently big deal is that they have gotten rid of Battle Shock completely. It just doesn't exist anymore, I guess, is the way that I was reading that. And they mentioned a stricter
That was-
CP economy. I don't really know what that means. What's
I
up?
have no idea what that means. Battleshock was like the only morale mechanic, right?
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, you would just like roll at the end and match up the do a little math with your leadership and however many models you lost, and people would run away. Yeah, I guess that's just gone now. It might as well be gone for 40K also. It doesn't usually matter.
Dude,
it mattered in the last game. It mattered in our last game.
Yeah, it
punked
mattered.
me out.
Look, just wait for the Chaos Codex. I'm sure the Night Lords are going to get some really strong rules involving Battle Shock. Their time has come.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, this isn't the episode for it, but their kill team rules that they showed off look pretty cool. For the Night Lords.
Apparently they're going to be
I
straight
haven't,
up
I haven't
busted
read
in
their
kill
kill team rules yet.
They look pretty cool.
Dude, they're doing
let's
some
put
crazy
kill
stuff.
team,
Anyway.
y'all. When we get that box, let's put
We'll do some kill team. People seem like they're itching for some kill team, so.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah.
Alpha Omega just updated 25 faction in AOS. So they have as many.
Yeah, isn't there
things
20, 25 and 40K also?
Yeah. So
24 or 25?
they have. Yeah. They have as many factions that they need to make feel distinct from each other on the tabletop, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I hope you guys can do this, because I don't want all the big heavy guys to play all like big heavy guys. I want like the Maggotkin to feel different from the ogres, to feel different from the other big heavy guy.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a part of that too is like, they're messing with the stat lines. And I think that the stat line changes that they did in 40K did a lot of heavy lifting as far as, distinguishing units from each other.
For sure.
Previously, everybody was like, oh, Gravis is just the new Terminator armor. But now they are pretty distinct in their functions. One of them is much better than the other, and it's not the Terminators. But anyway. So there was that, Battle Shock, CP economy. Everything is now an ability. That seems interesting to me. This is kind of something that I'm probably reading into a little too much. But they talked about there's ability sequencing where you have a declare step, and an effect step. And everything, including like moving is an ability, all of your combat's an ability, shooting is an ability. They're like specifying that it's called an ability, so you declare that ability, then you resolve that ability. To me, that almost sounds like a step towards alternating activations.
Dude, I hope. That would be amazing. I really hope they go to go away from I go you go. Man. Yeah,
That could very
I don't
much
think
be
they're
me looking into it too much. Just like reading into it, getting a little too hopeful. It seems like a move towards alternating activations to me.
maybe.
Maybe.
I've got a feeling it's them unifying terms, like you know how in Magic the Gathering the card does what the card says it does, and I think this is them kind of unifying terms on data sheets and being like, hey, if this hits an ability, then this hits anything, and so it's kind of like a re-anchoring of the system because you know as some of this stuff is phrased in I assume AOS third edition, but also in 40k, you look at some of these abilities and you're like, how does that work exactly? Like where's the developer FAQ? Where's the commentary on this? You have to like look up supporting arguments for how this ability actually works. Versus, I think the dream for them is something that's as digestible as Magic the Gathering, where it's like, okay, this is like basically a computer program. You're plugging in this, and this thing is affecting these abilities. Like, in order for anything to be affected, it has to first be an ability type thing, right?
I think it's to like remove any gray area on like order of operations of like how things are broken down. But we'll see, I guess. If they were going to try out alternating activations in any game, does Kill Team do that? I can't remember.
Kill Team's alternating activation.
Alpha
Is it
Omega,
Imperialis?
Imperialis, it does alternate. It alternates by phase too.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Warcry also alternates, so they're playing with it. They're toying with the idea.
It'd be kind of cool if they did that.
Yeah.
It also opens up the possibility that like every unit maybe has like 2 actions in a turn, or like some units have more than.
There is some kind of action economy. Actions. Yeah.
There's like an action economy, and so like maybe the command pool you can give a unit more actions, so you can have one unit like really pop off.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot. It gives them a lot of.
You know what other game does that?
A lot of,
Kill Team.
D&D. Oh yeah.
Kill Team does that. And you know what Kill Team has? Alternating activations.
Sure
does. It gives them a lot of room to play with how the rules work, especially given that they've done this whole modular thing. We'd be like, okay, now we're using this module where you can make your guys move twice in a phase, or something like that,
Yeah, and I mean they kind of already have that with some of the existing like command abilities. Like there's one that's just like make another move. So those things kind of already exist. I guess this is just providing a bit more of a solid framework for how those things are supposed to function.
Yeah.
And if you have that option per unit based on action economy, that would also explain why they're saying the command pool is getting smaller. Because if you don't need the command pool to do that kind of stuff anymore, then there's fewer things to use the command pool on.
Yeah.
So
for sure. And so that's kind of all the things that I wanted to cover leading up to the modular rule set. So in case you don't know what the modular rule set thing is, they're basically taking all of the big chunks of the game and breaking them into modules that are plug and play. So you have your core rule set, and then a bunch of different modules. The ones that they listed were commands, terrain, magic, army composition, command models, and battle tactics. Are all like modules. So you play with the core rules, and then you're like, okay, let's add in the magic module so we can now use our casters or whatever, and then add in the army composition module. I don't know what that means, because how do you build an army without army composition?
Well, when Age of Sigmar originally came out, I didn't play it back then, but if I remember correctly, when it originally came out, there was no like army composition. It was just like, get the miniatures you think are cool, here's their stat lines, here's the point values, put them on the table, play a game.
Yeah.
Very, very like beer and pretzels, like throwing stuff on the map and making them fight sort of gameplay. Which, as someone who had been playing a ton of Old World and that had been detonated, and then that was my only option at that time, it was very much a letdown, like for a lot of people it was. But with other options existing, that's not a there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and
You know?
also too, I think what it really is they're saying when you play the Spearhead, which is their version of Combat Patrol, you only play using the core rules. You don't attach any of the other modules to it.
Right.
And so with Spearhead, you obviously don't have army composition because it's just a box. It's just a box that you get, and that is your Spearhead.
So
and
is Spearhead
so-
essentially the AOS term for Combat Patrol?
Yeah, it's the exact same.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's like their big entry level gimmick for this edition.
That
I've
also
got a
gives them more
feeling-
flexibility to make the Spearheads balanced if they're not trying to fill out like requirements of an army. They can make it a force that's going to be able to take on the other Spearheads.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that this is a cool way to like make the system more agile. However, I think what it's going to boil down to is almost like the Smash Brothers syndrome, right? Where it's like Fox only, Final Destination, no items. Everyone just agrees that that's the way it's played, and no one else really.
See, I don't know that that's really true. I think if anything, this is going to encourage more, like playing with the weird rules, because it basically they're going to release these campaign books and the general's handbooks and stuff, and it's basically just going to be a book full of here's more modules for you to plug into, and so it's like the example that they used was the whole like magic system that they introduced for the end of 3rd edition AOS is apparently wildly complicated. It's just layers on layers on top of the core rules. And so it's basically core rules, here's your magic module, and now when a new book comes out that has more magic rules in it, you take out the old magic module and now you just put in a new one. And so to me, that just makes it way simpler and is going to encourage more people to mess around with all of the different modules. And you're not, it seems like you're not locked to, specific modules can only be played with other specific modules. You can mix and match them as you want to.
I hope so.
I just wonder how a faction that is magic heavy is going to function when you like take out like the magic module.
The magic module,
yeah. Like, how's the...
I just want to say, I don't want to get off on a tangent. But if you only ever played Smash Brothers and Final Destination, then you didn't really know how to play Smash Brothers. and that's it. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Listen, that was always my favorite way to play Smash, but I understand the arguments against it.
Yeah.
I don't want to get off on a tangent, but so like the Chaos Army I would run when I played Age of Sigmar was like the Kabbalists. I don't know how you say that. They're like very magic heavy chaos faction. And so if we were playing with no magic, then like all the like faction rules for them basically would not exist. I'm gonna be interested to see how that all plays out.
I'm like, gonna imagine it's gonna be similar to what they did in 40k. The psychic phase is gone. The psychic phase was instead compressed into datasheet rules, datasheet abilities, and just weapons are now like your psychic abilities. I think it's going to be very similar. I think the magic module is going to be plug this in. Now there's like actual spells for you to cast. Like the same way that the old psychic phase of 40k worked, or the same way like magic currently works. So I think most of it's going to be compressed into data sheets. What's up?
Yeah. Sorry, boys. I hate to do this. I have to drop early, unfortunately. Sorry, something came up. I apologize, but you guys can do the psychic attacks for me on the general populace. I appreciate it. Yeah, there we go. All right, toodles, everybody.
Bye.
Because of what I said about Smash Brothers. Oh, he's gone.
He's gone.
But yeah, so that makes sense because like Age of Sigmar also has like the what the constant spells.
Oh my god, I forgot what they're called. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Endless spells, I think is what they're called.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And maybe like that bigger, higher level stuff is what they're talking about. I think every faction had some form of that. So
yeah,
it would be like a even downgrade if all of them lost it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think if I had to guess, that's kind of how it's going to be done. But I don't know. I think it's a cool system. It took me a minute to wrap my head around what the fuck they were talking about. Because then when I was first reading through it and they were describing it, it was just kind of like, this just sounds like the rules to the game, but you're just breaking it into sections that already exist. What was that? Oh, Hat Boys! What's up?
Hat Boys!
Hat Boys!
Sorry, I was listening to you, but I was also engaging with chat.
We are the Hat Boys.
The Hat Boys.
Welcome to Real Wounding
Yeah.
Hours.
Yeah, Matt got wounded out. Matt lost all of his health.
So yeah. Anyways, I think that it's a cool system. It's basically Age of Sigmar 4th Edition's version of simplified, not simple, which was the 10th edition thing going into it.
I'm
the modular
excited
rule
to see how
set
they
is
implement
that.
it. I
Yeah.
think one thing it will definitely do, assuming they edit it in an intelligent way for it to be modular, is it'll make it very easy to learn the game.
Yeah.
Because you could start out just playing
Only
the
core rules. Yeah.
And like, I'm assuming, because they're saying it's going to be modular, that the core rules are going to be like a section where it's like, this is just the core rules, nothing else.
Yeah.
And then you can like be like, okay, now let's play with command points. Now let's play with magic. Now let's play with army.
Well, so they specified. So core rules cover moving, fighting, shooting, coherency, and simple, like, basic objective and terrain rules.
Yeah.
So you start with that. Here's just your core rules. Very simple. Learn those, and then once you're comfortable, you slot in the like advanced terrain module or the magic module.
Yeah.
So
but
yeah.
as long as they edit it in the book, where it's not all like souped together, then it'll be great for a learning game.
Yeah.
Very easy to pick up. So I'm excited. The games I've played of Age of Sigmar were fun.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty fast. I like them. The miniatures are amazing.
Age of Sigmar just has better miniatures than 40k. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what they put in like the lunches they make for the Age of Sigmar miniature designers, but
they just let them have fun. Like, I think they've
Yeah.
sterilized the 40k miniature team too much. They just,
I guess.
hand the Age of Sigmar models team a bag of crack, and they're like, go for it. Here's some cocaine. Have fun, boys.
Yeah, it has a lot less history to it, I guess, and it is like a wilder setting. Like there's a lot more just crazy magic going on.
Yeah.
Age of Sigmar. So
yeah, we're gonna be playing some Age of Sigmar on the channel when the new edition comes out. Maybe even before, depending on how fast we can paint and when the actual release date is. But it's probably gonna be the same as 3rd edition was, which was June. So wouldn't be shocked if it comes out in like 2 months.
Hell yeah.
So yeah. Any other final thoughts on Age of Sigmar? Big rules changes?
As far as the rules go, from what I read, it sounds interesting. We don't have like a lot of like real specific details yet, but
yeah. No specifics, but I am glad they broke down how the modular rules system actually functions, because it sounds really cool.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I don't know. These days, maybe it's because I'm getting older or something, but like when rules change, I'm much less like, how dare they, and more like, oh, okay, yeah, let's see what it is. Let's roll some dice.
Let's just see what they do. Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa, what is happening?
Say bye, Matt.
That was a weird transition. Ugh.
You didn't like that?
Yeah, and Molly's gonna play Night Haunt.
Molly's gonna play Night Haunt. She liked the Black Coach.
AOS confirmed. Molly playing AOS.
Molly, look, if you want to play some little ghosty boys with some scythes and the big Black Coach chariot thing, we got you.
Make a Studio Night Haunt army.
Studio Night Haunt army.
The biggest thing with Age of Sigmar, and this is also true for Old World, that I'm gonna have to resist is like buying
every army
or something. I mean, I gotta buy dwarves or wood elves. I need to see the Wood Elves. I gotta make up my mind about dwarves or Wood Elves for Old World, but
True. Dwarves are coming out soon, TM.
that's a tangent.
Yeah. I could paint. I was talking to Sean about it. Build a Night Haunt army and paint it in probably a day. They're so easy. They're just like
Yeah. You just gotta get those ghost colors, that kind of like bluish, faint bluish teal,
yeah.
and then just throw little patches of black and metal in there, and
Yeah.
you're good to go. With an airbrush, definitely.
Yeah, it's just an airbrush check army.
Yeah, I need to actually break out my airbrush and try it on something.
Do it.
I've been too scared to use my airbrush.
I'll do it with you.
I'm afraid I'm gonna like.
You mean to come hold your hand while you do it?
Yeah, you want to come have airbrush buddy day?
Yeah. I'll bring my whole setup too.
Mine's a little portable one, but
Mine's not.
well, maybe I'll come to you. I'll try it out on Team Yankee. I come to you every week. Why are you making eyes about that? I'm up in your shit every week, every Monday.
Every week. But yeah. So that's all of the big changes coming to Age of Sigmar 4th edition that we know about. We'll probably do another one of these when it gets closer to the actual release time. I've just been very based and AOS pilled over the last week, so
Yeah, you've been craving.
I just wanted to talk about it. I have been craving. So yeah. Any final thoughts?
All right.
No, maybe.
Nope. I have no thoughts.
No thoughts.
I've been
Head
drinking
empty.
sake constantly this whole stream.
How much of that bottle have you
I didn't
finished?
About half.
Damn,
About
homie.
half gone. I used a little bit when I was making fried rice,
Alright,
so it
fair
wasn't
enough.
a full bottle, but just a splash. I'm
All
having
right.
a little bit more right now.
Well, no
I gotta
thoughts.
keep my mana high.
Head empty. Mana high.
Okay, I have thoughts. I'm excited to see what they do. I'm excited. There you go. Those are my thoughts. All right. Put me under pressure. Put me in the spotlight. Look at all these spotlights.
I was removing the light from you. I was taking the spotlight away by saying no thoughts,
Is that
head
good look for
empty.
me?
But that's fine. Anyways, now I
What are
think
your
we're gonna
thoughts,
actually. I don't have thoughts. Head empty.
All right, head empty. No thoughts. All right, y'all.
I'm excited too. I'm gonna play a lot of AOS probably, and I'm painting my army now. So soon, TM.
Are you gonna be painted for Saturday when we play?
That's the plan. I'm trying to.
Ah, shit. I'm not gonna be painted.
That's fine.
I have had that stuff built. My entire army built for 3 years, waiting to play.
I do have this
No
guy
one-
that I'm
no
building
one-
right now.
No
He has no
one-
head though.
Yeah, the Cruel Boys are interesting.
More like pool boys, am I right?
Whoa!
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I'll stop dilly-dallying. Let you finish what you're trying to say. I won't.
What I was trying to say is, no thoughts, head empty. Good night, chat.